Namaste. Welcome to UGC Pathshala for postgraduate studies. I am Anita Khanna and I teach Japanese in Jawaharlal Nehru University. And today we are going to study paper 15, module 14. Paper 15 is about Introduction to Japanese Literature in English. And today's module is about the most widely known legend of Ubatsuteyama. Ubatsute symbolized the mountain where the old people were banished after they attained the age of 70. So let's learn about this title, Ubatsuteyama and the theme of problem solving in Japan. We all know that the style of posing problems is seen in the traditional Indian themes, like in the stories of Akbar and Birbal. A classical example of this theme is found in the epic of Mahabharata, where the Pandava brothers are tested by a yaksha when they have to drink water in the pond possessed by him, and he asks them to answer his questions, and only if they are correct he will allow them to drink water. So the four brothers are unable to answer, but the fifth one, Yudhishthir, could answer those to the satisfaction of the yaksha, and all was good after that. What kind of questions did he ask? For example, one question is, what is heavier than the earth? What is heavier than the sky? What is faster than the wind? What is more numerous than grass? To this question, the eldest brother, Yudhishthir, answers like this: the mother is heavier than the earth, father is higher than the sky, mind is faster than wind, thoughts are more numerous than grass. A more profound example of this theme is found in Jatak stories, and in a rather long Jatak tale we find there the protagonist, whose bodhisattva, answers several riddles or give wise judgment to the satisfaction of his associates. Similar theme is also widely known as the Judgment of Solomon. It is a typical example or episode of identifying the actual mother of an infant. Two women quarrel over an infant, each one saying that the child belongs to her. As the matter reaches the wise Solomon, he draws a line in the middle of the ground and places the child on it. Then he asks the two women to pull the child to their side, and whosoever succeed in taking the child will be the mother. Now one woman held the child from the feet and the other from the hand. Both of them began to pull the child, and as they did so, the infant began to cry, and the real mother let go of the child in distress as she could not see her child in pain. Obviously, the child was given to her as she was identified as the real mother of the infant. This theme of problem solving is blended with the motive of filial piety, which means respect for the elders, especially the parents, and together it frames the plot of, or it weaves the unique theme of Ubatsuteyama. In India, there are folk tales to show respect for the old people and value their wisdom and experience. However, the aspect of filial piety, which is so deeply rooted in the native Indian traditions as well, as we have seen in the epics, mythology, classical works, that it is seldom treated as a separate motive or theme. In Japan, the aspect of filial piety is overtly emphasized due to the emphasis on Confucian ethics, in which the utmost importance is laid on the filial piety, oyakoko in Japanese. Let's have a look at the motive in Japan and deduce from that as to what kind of problems and what kind of situations are dealt with. In Konjaku Monogatari, a collection of discourse narratives, this story is found as the story of, quote, the country where people over 70 were exiled. The story, translated by me from the original Japanese, goes like this. This theme is about a country where the people over 70 years of age were banished on a distant mountain and not allowed to stay in the city. Now, in that country, there was a minister who had an old mother, and as a dutiful son, he took care of her day and night. Time passed, and his mother attained 70 years of age. He thought, if I see my mother in the morning and don't see her face in the evening, I am anxious about her. What will happen to me when I discard her on a mountain and I won't be able to see her at all? Contemplating like this, he secretly made a hole in a corner of his house, which was livable, and hid his old mother there without telling anybody. Like this, several years passed. Once there was a national crisis. The king was sent an identical pair of male colts from the neighboring country with a message. You find out which is the sire and which is the child. The king was asked to send back an answer within 7 days, and if he failed to do so, he had to fight with the neighbor. In this national crisis, when the neighboring king was bent upon attacking the country, the king was very disturbed and he called an urgent meeting. What shall we do about this? Try to find the answer to this problem. Nobody answered in the meeting. Then this minister replied, this is not a simple problem. Let me go home and think over it in person, and then I will reply to you. Saying this, he thought, my mother is experienced and old. She might have heard about such a problem and how to solve it. So he returned home, and after settling, he went to her mother's chamber and inquired anxiously after relating the incident in the court. The mother replied, I have heard about it when I was young. In order to identify the parent and child colt, keep the grass before the two. The one who first starts eating covertly would be the child, whereas the other one who starts later would be the parent. The minister listened to her and then he was convinced and he reported it to the king. What a wonderful idea, said the king, and immediately did so and was able to distinguish between the two. Time passed, and once again the neighboring king sent a lacquered stick which looked almost the same from all sides, with a message saying, "Find out which side is the root and which is the trunk in this stick." The king was perplexed again and asked for the minister. And like earlier, the minister left the palace and went to her mother and inquired about the problem. His mother coolly told him, "It is simple. Let the stick float in water. The side which tends to sink lower is the root." Minister reported like before, and the answer was sent to the neighboring country, and the neighboring king kept quiet for some time. But again he sent an elephant with the message asking to find out the weight of the elephant. When the king learnt about this question, he was distressed and called for the minister again. "What should we do?" And the minister replied like before, "Let me go back home and think about it in person." As he returned home and the minister was ready with the answer, first make the elephant stand on a boat, and as the boat gets submerged in the water, mark the point of the water line on the side of the boat with black ink. Then offload the elephant and load stones on the ship. Until it sinks up to that level you had marked earlier, you load the stones and then stop and offload the stones. Then weigh each stone on the scale, and the total sum of the weight of stones would represent the weight of the elephant. On hearing this, the king got the elephant weighed, and stating the weight of that, it was returned back to the neighboring king. The neighboring king was sad to find that the answer was correct, and he gave up the idea of attacking this country, thinking that it's a country where wise people live. The problem that could not be solved by our wise men have been well solved by them, and the correct replies are sent to us. And it is clever of them to attack such a country would amount to setting a trap for ourselves, and we may be captured by them rather than capturing them. Instead, we should respect our neighbor and have friendly relations with them. Thus, he discarded his long drawn hostility and sent a letter of friendship. Now the king happily summoned the ministers before his council and said, "Due to the wisdom of this minister, the danger to our land is averted forever. Now we are friends with our neighbor. It is a matter of joy. But tell us how you solved such a difficult question every time." The minister had tears in his eyes, and he said that since ancient times we had been following a rule to banish the old people from our house to the mountain. It is the 8th year since my mother crossed 70, and in order to do my duty to look after her, especially when she's old, I secretly built a hiding and kept her there. And every time I got the problem, I consulted her, thinking that she might have heard about it and got all the replies from her. due to her experience and age, she could solve the problem. On hearing this, the king said, I wonder why we have this old custom of banishing people when they are old. We have learned a lesson from our experience this time and withdrew that law and cancelled it. As mentioned, this story of Konjuk Monogatari has two independent plots: the bond of love between parent and child, which is considered to be a virtue of filial piety as per the Confucian ethics. The latter is the problem solving theme, which could be further divided into two types. One part is the threat of the neighboring or powerful enemy, and second is intentionally giving difficult tasks to a person in order to test them or avoid a particular situation. And these two plots are combined in the Japanese legend Ubatsuteyama. So, the reason for banishing old people in some plots or variants of this motif is given to be the discord between the mother in law and daughter in law, which is widely found. In some cases, it is adapted independent of the portion of problem solving. Like in Japan, it is portrayed as mother in law daughter in law problem, whereby the son, on the insistence of his wife, carries the old parent away to discard on a mountain. And when he finds on the way that the parent drops some twigs so that the son doesn't lose the way or forget the way while returning, the son is moved by the love of his parent and bring them back. Likewise, the plot of problem solving is also found independently with a wide range of problems. A glaring example of this subtype is that is intentionally giving difficult tasks to evade the situation is Taketori Monogatari. In this plot, Kaguya Hime gives difficult problems to her suitors in order to avoid their marriage proposals instead of refusing them directly. So, in case of Japan, especially in the Taketori Monogatari, the difficult tasks vary from those in another culture or in India, like one of the difficult tasks given by the Kaguya Hime, the protagonist of Taketori Monogatari, is to fetch the original begging bowl of Buddha. So, like this, the plot of Ubatsuteyama is modified by the types of questions asked and the problems posed, which differ from time to time and place to place. In Heian classic, the Pillow Book or Makura no Soshi of 11th century, this theme is found as the story of Aritoshi no Myojin. The problems are to identify the trunk and root of a similar looking stick, to identify the male and female of a pair of snakes, and third, on which the title of this story is based, is to thread a hectagonal jewel. So, like this, the problem solving is a unique motive which is found across the globe, and the problems which are posed reflect on the cultural characters of the country. Like in India, the theme is still distinct as the story of Akbar and Birbal, and epic, whereas in Japan it is a legend very close to the hearts of people, and even it has been sung by the haiku poet Basho, and it is there in as the motive of the Aritoshi no Myojin, the expert way of threading a octagonal or hexagonal pearl or a jewel. In other words, a crooked jewel.